Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we continue with the story of Tieu and Hai, the couple who stepped into a loving marriage, and since then, their lives have flowed through rare, peaceful days. Hai's mother has always held a special affection for Ivy, Tieu's daughter from her previous relationship. Whenever she has free time, she comes over to pick Ivy up, cooks the little girl delicious dishes that only a loving grandmother would make. In their small home, Ivy's cheerful laughter echoes each time she runs around the living room, spreading warmth that makes the place feel more complete than ever. But in this episode, amidst that peaceful atmosphere appears something unexpected, a piece of good news that even Tieu herself isn't entirely sure of yet. Over the past few days, her body has begun to change in strange ways. She feels sleepy more often for no clear reason. Sometimes while working, she has to stop and steady herself with a hand on the table. Light dizziness comes and goes without warning, forcing her to take a step back to keep her balance. Even the familiar dishes she normally enjoys now make her feel nauseous. A strong scent alone can cause her stomach to churn. Hai is the first to notice it. He has always been sensitive to every little change in his wife. Just a slight frown on her face is enough to make him rush over to check on her. Lately, he has been even more attentive, his eyes following her every small movement as if wanting to ensure she isn't suffering in silence. San, his voice soft yet filled with concern, you've been exhausted these days. How about I take you for a checkup? Tieu only smiled, but there was a hint of strain in it. She gently shook her head and placed a hand on her forehead, as if trying to chase away the heaviness she felt. It's nothing. Maybe I've just been working too much the past few days. A little rest will fix it. She said that, but inside, she could no longer deny that what she felt wasn't normal fatigue. Sometimes, sitting alone by the window in the sunlight, she would touch her belly and pause, as if recognizing a familiar sensation, one she had felt before, when she was pregnant with Ivy. That subtle blend of excitement and unease made her restless, but because she wasn't certain yet, she kept quiet. She didn't want Hai to worry unnecessarily. Every night, when Hai held her close, his hand gently resting on her shoulder, he didn't say more, yet his eyes carried a concern he couldn't hide. As for Tieu, she kept telling herself she should wait a few more days, see if the signs became clearer. She didn't want to rush, nor did she want to say anything before knowing for sure. The family scene remained warm and lively, Ivy chattering about school, Hai's mother occasionally dropping by with baskets of fresh fruit, and Hai caring for his wife in every little way. But only Tieu carried a delicate secret inside her heart, a tiny seed just beginning to sprout, one she wasn't ready to reveal. She didn't know that, in just a few days, everything would become clear, and their family's life could change in a very special way. That day, after being persuaded over and over by Hai, and especially after seeing the kind of worry in his eyes she had never seen before, Tieu finally nodded and agreed to go for a checkup. She still believed she was simply exhausted from overworking, but the concern on Hai's face made her unable to keep avoiding it. On the way to the clinic, Hai kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror, his grip on the steering wheel tightening until the knuckles turned white. Meanwhile, Tieu sat quietly, her hands clasped together, her palms slightly damp with sweat. The nervousness made her breaths lighter and quicker with every passing minute. When they stepped into the clinic, the familiar smell of antiseptic made her swallow instinctively. Hai held her hand, gentle, yet firm, as if trying to lend her some of his strength. The doctor opened the test results, scanned a few lines of numbers, then paused. When the doctor finally looked up, eyes soft and a small smile forming on her lips, the entire world seemed to slow down. Congratulations! Tieu-san is pregnant. In that moment, it felt as though the world around them stopped. All the sounds in the clinic, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the scratching of a pen on paper, footsteps echoing in the hall, all faded away, leaving only that one sentence ringing clearly, sinking straight into Tieu-san's heart. Her eyes widened. She looked at the doctor, then down at her own belly, unable to believe what she had just heard. Her fingers gently clutched the hem of her shirt, trembling as though one wrong movement would make the miracle vanish. And Hai, it seemed to take him a few seconds for his mind to fully process the words. He stood still, eyes wide, lips parted as if trying to speak but unable to form a sound. Then suddenly, emotions crashed over him like a wave. Hai broke into a smile full of disbelief, joy, and overwhelming emotion, so strong that his eyes reddened. His voice escaped him, shaky, almost cracking. Really, doctor? San, you're pregnant. His gaze toward Tieu-san was as if he were looking at the most precious miracle in the world. He reached out as if to touch her shoulder, then quickly pulled back, as though afraid the slightest pressure would harm her or disturb the fragile miracle growing inside her. Tieu-san looked down, her heart pounding wildly, a mixture of shock and overwhelming tenderness rendering her speechless. Leaving the clinic, they walked down a bright white corridor. No one spoke for several moments. Hai walked beside her, his hand still wrapped around hers, while she kept glancing down at her belly, as though waiting for some kind of quiet confirmation from her own body. When they reached the parking lot, Tieu-san stopped. She turned to face Hai, her eyes shining but clouded with worry. Her lips trembled slightly as she whispered, her voice so soft it seemed afraid to disturb the happiness in the air. I don't know if I can take good care of the baby. I'm scared. Hai didn't let her finish. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, strong enough to shield her, but gentle enough to not overwhelm her. His chin rested lightly atop her hair as he spoke, his voice low, steady, and filled with the kind of conviction that felt like a vow etched into his soul. No. You don't have to be afraid of anything. I'm here. From now on, you and our baby are everything to me. The moment made Tieu-san's breath catch. She closed her eyes, letting a hot tear roll down her cheek. But it wasn't fear. And it wasn't sadness. They were tears of joy, pure, overflowing joy that she couldn't hold back no matter how hard she tried. The moment was so peaceful, so sacred, that time itself seemed to pause, just long enough for the two of them, standing there in a sunlit, breezy parking lot, to fully savor the miracle that life had given them. That night, the couple's bedroom seemed brighter than usual, even though it was only lit by the warm glow of a small night lamp. Hai could barely sleep. He lay beside her, but not for a single moment did he stay still. Whenever Tieu-san shifted even slightly, he immediately propped himself up on one arm, watching her with eyes full of worry, yet equally filled with happiness. She had only been pregnant for a very short time, but Hai acted as though she were carrying the most fragile treasure in the world. He quietly got up, made her a warm glass of milk, then returned to adjust her pillow, check if her blanket was covering her well enough, and once again leaned down to ask, "San, are you hurting anywhere? Feeling nauseous? Are you uncomfortable?" Each question was gentle, but also anxious, as if speaking too softly might make her miss his words, and speaking too loudly might startle her. He didn't dare touch her too firmly, but he also didn't dare look away from her for too long. At one point, Tieu simply lifted her hand to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, and Hai immediately turned over, asking, "What's wrong? Are you feeling sick? Is this position okay? Do you want to change?" Seeing him like that, Tieu couldn't hold back her laughter. It rang out softly, like a wind chime in the quiet night. "If you keep worrying like this, I'll start getting nervous too." Hai froze for a second, the tips of his ears turning red, but he still held her hand gently, his fingers tightening ever so slightly. "I have to worry," he said, his voice low, steady, and so sincere it softened the heart of anyone who heard it. "You're carrying my precious little treasure." That simple phrase, "my precious little treasure," made Tieu nose sting with emotion. The look in Hai's eyes was tender, so warm it felt like it gathered all the light in the room. He kept his gaze on her, as if blinking would make him miss something important. After a while, when Tieu finally drifted off to sleep, Hai still couldn't rest. He lay on his side, one hand placed gently behind her back to keep her warm, watching her like he was memorizing each quiet breath she took. Sometimes he glanced down at her belly, still flat at this early stage, yet for him, inside it was already a whole little world he needed to protect with everything he had. It wasn't until the first hint of dawn reached the window that Hai managed to fall asleep for a few minutes. But the moment he heard Tieu stir awake, he shot up immediately, thinking she might be feeling unwell. Instead, she simply sat up and stretched her shoulders, looking at him with a mix of amusement and tenderness. Hai brushed her hair back, his voice firm as though announcing an important decision. "I'm telling my mom today. She'll be overjoyed." It wasn't a question, it was certainty. He knew his mother well. He knew how much she adored Tieu, how deeply she loved Ivy, and he was sure that she would be so thrilled by this news she probably wouldn't be able to sleep either. And he was right. The moment Hai told his mother, her overwhelming joy, and the scene where she eagerly took Tieu to see a new apartment, choosing a better place to prepare for the baby, that was exactly what you described in the previous episode. This chapter connects directly to that moment, the turning point where their story enters a new stage, filled with even more love, more hope, and so many beautiful things waiting ahead.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay sao mình bị đau bụng quá, không biết là do mình đau dạ dày hay đau thận ra mà cứ đau phía một nhói một hông bên trái bên phải rồi bút ra sau lưng nữa. Trời ơi khiếp, bị thận quá mà đâu có uống nước ngọt mấy đâu, chỉ hơi lười uống nước thôi mà. Không biết là bị cái gì mà đau dữ vậy ta. Cảm ơn mọi người đã theo dõi video của mình nhé. Tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong video